The Evil and Exorcism of Emma Schmidt. The Ritual. In 1928, Emma Schmidt was approximately 46 years old and living in Wisconsin when it happened again. The voices were haunting as much as she wanted to. She could not enter church, her thoughts were increasingly intrusive, and the nervousness was growing stronger. Now, she was in a Franciscan convent just outside of Earling, Iowa, with her arms bound and a small team of nuns making sure she could not leave the iron bed she was resting on. They offered her food, but she refused, seething with anger. She knew they had blessed it before giving it to her. She wanted nothing more than to tear them apart. The very sight of them infuriated her. Then he arrived, a Capuchin priest from Wisconsin that had arranged this whole ordeal. This was not their first meeting. The two had met years earlier in June 1912 when he performed Emma's first exorcism. Schmidt, sometimes referred to as Anna Eklund or Mary X, was born in 1882 in Marathon, Wisconsin. Very little is known about her parents, but it is estimated that her mother died in approximately 1890, leaving Emma in the clutches of her abusive and alcoholic father. She was a very devout Catholic, but suddenly, beginning at the age of 14, she found herself unable to enter a church without violent thoughts entering her mind. She was consumed with ideas of smashing the holy water fonts and harming the priests. She could not bring herself to receive communion, and all consecrated items caused revulsion. Soon, she simply could not enter a church at all. She was being held back by interior hidden power. When a local church got involved in helping the tormented woman, they contacted Father Theophilus Riesinger. Father Riesinger was born in Germany in 1899, and at the age of 20, he joined the Capuchins, a branch of the Franciscan order. He immigrated to the United States and first practiced in New York City before moving to the Midwest in 1912. The same year, he would perform his very first exorcism on the same Emma Schmidt. Father Riesinger's first exorcism on the younger Schmidt was deemed successful, and she was able to return to normal life. But the effects were short-lived. By the time Schmidt and Father Riesinger met for the second time, she claims she had not experienced a day of peace in decades. In that same amount of time, Father Riesinger went from his first exorcism to becoming the go-to name for dispelling the evils infecting human beings, with 19 successful exorcisms under his belt. Why didn't the results of Schmidt's first exorcism last? When she first became tormented, she claimed it was the result of curses put on her by her monstrously abusive father and her Aunt Mina, widely regarded to be a witch who allegedly placed curses on her and put cursed herbs in her food. Now both her father and aunt were dead, but it did not stop their spirits from tormenting her and ushering demonic forces into her body and mind. Now, almost 2 decades after his first exorcism on Schmidt, he knew what he was walking into, and he knew he needed to prepare. When Father Riesinger was again called upon to remove the demons from Schmidt, he was preaching in St. Joseph Parish in Earling, Iowa. Reverend Joseph Steiger was an old friend, and Father Riesinger asked for his assistance in allowing him to perform Schmidt's new exorcism at his parish in town. Father Steiger may have been hesitant, but the location of Earling had a number of advantages. For one, there was a Catholic church and a convent where Schmidt could stay during the process. The town was quiet with only a few hundred residents, but it was still close enough to the city of Des Moines and a major railway to support her traveling to the location. The seclusion of the convent would allow the exorcism to be performed in relative secrecy and keep Schmidt as anonymous as possible. It was also hoped that being away from home would lessen the power of the demonic forces tormenting her. It became clear almost immediately that the distance made no difference. Schmidt arrived in Erling, Iowa on August 18, 1928, and she later stated that she was almost immediately filled with rage. Upon arriving at the convent, she wanted to attack the nuns waiting for her, and when they brought her food, she knew immediately that they had blessed it before entering the room. Raging, she refused all food and drink and proceeded to sit in her room, purring like an animal and awaiting the arrival of Father Riesinger. It took quite a bit longer than expected for him to get there. When he arrived at the train station and met Father Steiger, they started the journey to the convent in his personal car, but the vehicle refused to accelerate to full speed. This inconvenience did not surprise Father Riesinger, as he stated to Father Steiger, "My dear friend, I was not wrought up about it at all. I would have been much more surprised if everything had gone smoothly. Difficulties will arise. They must be expected to arise. The devil will try his utmost to foil our plans. While waiting, I prayed constantly that the evil spirit would not be able to harm you, as I suspected that he would try to interfere with your coming. Yea, that he would try to injure you personally." The first session started that very same day. Schmidt was put on an iron bed with her clothing and sleeves tied down to prevent her from breaking free. The strongest nuns in the convent were on hand to assist, and they held her down awaiting the horror to begin. As soon as Father Riesinger began speaking the rites, her eyes fell tightly shut, and she became unconscious. But her sedated state soon gave way to chaos. According to reports from inside the convent, Schmidt was able to dislodge herself from the bed and promptly threw herself high upon a wall and had to be forced back down. Then the screaming started. Howling, piercing, wretched screaming tore through the convent walls as Father Riesinger commanded they cease with, "Silence, Satan! Keep quiet, you infamous reprobate!" Then the voices began, screeching, bellowing voices that answered Father Riesinger's questioning in English, German, and Latin, all claiming to be multiple entities including Beelzebub, Judas Iscariot, and the spirit of Schmidt's father and aunt, all intent on torturing the woman. The difficult process endured for 3 sessions, first from August 18th to the 26th, again from September 13th to the 20th, and lastly from December 15th to 23rd. The demons and Father Riesinger continued back and forth, battling each other and draining the energy and life from everyone in the convent. Schmidt continuously vomited impossible amounts of rancid bile and liquid filled with what appeared to be chewed tobacco leaves, despite never consuming anything more than small amounts of milk and water. Schmidt's body became distorted, expanding, contracting, and twisting as she continued to rage and emit voices delivering information about those present that she had no way of knowing. The only person able to withstand the harrowing daily torture of exorcising Schmidt was Father Riesinger, who was present in the room every day, while the nuns rotated their attendance in shifts in order to recover and recharge. Over time, Father Steiger grew increasingly regretful of allowing the exorcism to take place in his parish. When he voiced his opinion that the ritual should be stopped and moved elsewhere, Father Riesinger reacted with surprise and blamed his second thoughts on the devil putting them into his head and attempting to drive a wedge between the old friends. Reportedly, the demons also had an opinion on Father Steger's change of heart, bellowing out to him, "Just wait until the end of the week. When Friday comes, then..." When that Friday arrived, Father Steiger was involved in a car accident while on his way to visit a sick woman. He survived the wreck with only minor injuries, but for the following weeks, the priest claimed he could not sleep at night because of a constant stream of unearthly sounds that only stopped briefly in response to his prayers. For week after week, it seemed that the efforts of Father Riesinger was having no effect on the tormentors living within Schmidt. But then, beginning on December 15th, the intensity of the evil inside began to wane. At 9 p.m. on December 23, 1928, months after her exorcism began, Schmidt suddenly leapt up from her bed. Assuming this was just another incident, the nuns at hand moved to wrestle her back down, but instead, she fell back and began softly muttering, "Beelzebub, Judas, Jacob, Mina, hell, hell, hell." A few minutes later, Schmidt suddenly regained consciousness. Her eyes flew open, and she stated to her stunned audience, "From what a terrible burden have I been freed at last! My Jesus, mercy! Praised be Jesus Christ!" It slowly dawned on those present that after so many weeks of torture, Emma Schmidt was again herself. The exorcism had worked. The exorcism of Emma Schmidt was meant to stay under wraps. The nuns that endured the ordeal requested transfers and were all relocated within a year, taking the story with them. Father Riesinger continued preaching and exorcising until his death in November of 1941. By all accounts, Schmidt was able to resume a perfectly normal life, practicing as a devout Catholic, and never again being tormented by the demons that stole nearly 4 decades of her life.